Next up for the Motorsport FIA Games, the single make GT race. Qualifying coming up shortly. Track conditions here drying out, but as we've just seen from the Formula 4, everyone's staying on wets for their session. So jeopardy already in the air before cars even make the circuit. Giles Bourne here, joined by David Addison. We had an excellent session one for our first day here on track. How's it going to go, do you think, here for the single make GT qualifying session?
It's a new category, isn't it, for this year's FIA Motorsport Games? And it mirrors, of course, one of the most long-standing, most popular one-make championships, which is the Trofeo Pirelli Ferrari Challenge. And the cars which are new to the series this year are the 296 Challenge models. In the real world, if you like, they have a hybrid unit that's been ditched to get more power. So these are close on 700 horsepower, 2.9 litre V6 twin-turbo engines. They are wonderful bits of kit. And it's a really competitive series. Now, there are drivers from Europe, the drivers from there's a North American championship, so Lisa Clark, for example, Racer Mum, as she goes under the title of, she's on the entry list as well. But is it going to be competitive? You bet it is. You've got James Owen for Team UK, who was the winner in the World Finals, Ferrari Mondiali, last week, and so he definitely is a man to watch, coached by touring car racer Bobby Thompson. And there are lots of other drivers, he was saying to me yesterday, who are forces to be reckoned with that he competes against in the European Championship. So it is going to be competitive, that is for sure. And another new discipline. We've got plenty of GT history within the FIA Motorsport Games. It was a GT race that created all of this, really, the FIA GT Nations Cup that we had at Bahrain circuit in 2018. But this, again, levels the playing field. Everybody with the same equipment. They're different teams operating the cars, but everybody has the same base car to begin with.
Yeah, and like you said, the 296 new this year for the Challenge Series, and it is an absolute weapon of a car. I've been fortunate enough to coach, drive, and work with the car. It is so fast. So we're always used to having the Challenge car being slightly slower than the GT3 brother to the 296 in Scrim, but here I think the lap times could be quite similar because of that 700 horsepower these cars producing. The GT3 cars more in the mid 500s, so they are absolutely phenomenal and one of the best selling one make series car ever. And Ferrari really do a great job, and that's why they get all of these amateur drivers coming together, racing across the world, as we see some of those world flags on the roofs of these cars, showing the sort of variety we're getting in the countries that have entered. Yesterday in their free practice session, we had Georgia actually fastest at the end of it, so quite hard to call. Most cars looking like they're on the wet tyres. Be good to get Antonio just to keep an eye. Is anyone putting the slick Pirelli on? Because it was close at the end of the previous F4 session, I thought. These cars do have ABS traction control, so a little bit easier as we see Team Sweden there giving us the good luck symbol, and yeah, hopefully he can be a bit higher than the P2 he's alluding to.
Christian Kinch for Team Sweden. There is Team Italy, and it is Paolo Scudieri in the AF Corsa run car representing his nation. Started off in the Trofeo Abarth, but has been a Ferrari Challenge regular now for many seasons. But you've got the likes of not just James Owen as the man to beat, but you've got Christoph Herney for Switzerland, who's a former European champion. You've got Alvaro Ramos for Portugal, who's won the Portuguese Speed Championship effectively in a GT4 car. Axel Sartingen, who was the European champion in 2023. David Kayala, or Data Kayala, as he prefers to be known, who's won lots of touring car and legends competitions in Georgia. So it is going to be competitive, that is for sure. And there is somebody who was fined for being late for the administrative checks earlier on in the week, the Lebanese driver Talal Shire. Right, green light goes on at the end of the pit lane, and this qualifying session, 30 minutes it is, and we're in business.
Yeah, just seeing everyone with their rain lights on, apart from Team United Kingdom, the white car at the back there, obviously with the Union Jack on the bonnet. These guys do have radio communication, so the teams will be able to tell them. We saw in that F4 session, didn't we, people getting the mechanical warning flag, then eventually black flag if they didn't turn it on. So hopefully won't come a cropper for that for Team United Kingdom. Weaving left to right, trying to get some heat in these tyres. These will be brand new wets. They haven't been on the wet track this weekend, so the releasing agent will just be on the top of these tyres, and very, very slippy until that is off. So, yeah, interesting to see who can get these tyres turned on quickest, get a lap in this 30-minute session, and then potentially look at a different tyre for later on. There's no spray again, is there, in this first part of the lap? The sun is out as well now. That's going to really aid drying the track, which was particularly wet in T12 and 13, I thought, at the end of the last session. So it'll be interesting to see if these cars are still kicking up spray.
And for many drivers, it's the first time they will have raced here. James Owen has done some mileage around here for Team UK, as an example. He drove in the GT Winter Series, so although he's not perhaps raced this car here, he has some knowledge of the track, and others likewise. Over the years, the circuit has played host to the Ferrari Challenge, but the new for this year 296 model looks a long car, but it's a serious racing car, that's for sure. And the qualifying session underway, the road drying, one or two drivers being a little bit more committed than others there, as Team Italy, I think it was, trying to get through the traffic. Paolo Scudieri found himself boxed in and now able to get through past that slower car.
Yeah, this outlap, just trying to find a bit of space, less critical. So we see the sun really shining through the windscreen onto the Georgian driver's eyes there. That's going to be quite an annoyance. Most drivers normally run a tinted visor in a GT car that you can obviously have up if you don't need it, and then down if you do. But I think there it just looked like there was no visor at all on the Stilo helmet of the Georgian driver, so that could be a bit of a problem. Spotting your braking point is hard enough, then when you've got the sun blazing through your retinas, it definitely doesn't help.
Yeah, it is like somebody's literally turned on a big light in the last 10 minutes compared to what we had for the F4 qualifying session. Out onto the circuit will venture Christian Kinch in the Team Sweden entry, run by Go Motorsport and Hertha Racing. Other teams, we've touched on AF Corsa. The Team UK entry, run by a team familiar from this year's GT World Challenge, or from the DTM as well, which is Licky Moly Team Engschler. So there are some good brains operating these cars and some good people behind the wheel.
Yeah, best teams in the world coming together in this championship and all the other support series as well here this weekend at Valencia. So, yeah, the drivers don't have any excuses there using an inexperienced team. They're all able to pick the team they wanted to run with, which obviously should be giving them the fastest car out there. You see one of the cars in the background, just trying to work out who that is exactly at the moment, but no wheels on the car, so maybe they are waiting for it to get a bit dry and just go straight to the slick tyres, which should be 10 seconds a lap quicker. That is the delta that you can get if you get the right tyre at the right point.
So you're looking at Spain, and it is Ivan Velasco Sanchez behind the wheel, former Clio Cup Spain racer. He's raced Minis and moved to Ferraris for this season with good success. So Ivan Velasco Sanchez will certainly be one to watch. Whether there's any circuit knowledge to be gained, we will see over the course of this session. Right now, though, Georgia looking really quick, because Data Kayala is faster than anybody in the first sector than the middle sector. Although, yes, and the lap time that he offers up is a 1:45.6. So yesterday we got them into the 34s in bone dry conditions. It is a start-up lap anyway, but there is more time to come, that's for sure. But Velasco Sanchez will be the next one to look for.
Yeah, I think most of these drivers are going to do the banker strategy here, probably put 3 or 4 laps in on these wet tyres and then start to think about the slicks. The car in the pit lane that we saw was the 127 of Lisa Clark, United States of America, so maybe just waiting to see what the conditions are like before they commit to heading out there. She will be able to watch all of these pictures, and our driver coach will then be able to talk. But look at the spray here, 3:13, definitely hanging on a little bit longer than the rest of the lap. So the cars have adjustable traction control and ABS, so if it is a bit slippy, you can crank those settings up to offer more support. But at the moment, that will be particularly slippy through there. 700 horsepower all through the rear wheels as well, obviously, will be relatively leery. P1 then for Team Spain, 1:43.0. Pretty quick in these conditions, I think.
2.5 seconds quicker than Data Kayala, but there is more to come from the Georgian driver, who has done an absolute best first sector. There he is. So Kayala coming up towards us now, and Kayala with third currently, being the Team Venezuela car of Angelo Carlo Fontana Oliviero, and then you've got Axel Sartingen for Team Germany, fourth. Right, as far as Kayala is concerned, absolute best and a personal best, but behind him, Fontana Oliveira has done it the other way round, so he's going to be on for an improved lap time as well. They should all be improving, of course, really, given that the tyres are getting lots more warmth into them. Does Kayala go top? He doesn't. He stays second. So the lap time is better, but he still misses out as racer mom, Lisa Clark, gets ready to go.
Yeah, they decided to put some wet tyres on. Going to bolt those on, make sure that the right pressure, there is a minimum pressure they can be, so you can't go too low. The performance normally on this Pirelli tyre, particularly the lower you go, the faster you go, but the chance of a tyre issue because of the deflection in a low pressure is too risky. So there is a minimum as we look on into the garages, everyone with their hands over the mouth, surprised at the lap times maybe already how fast everyone is going.
And maybe a bit of concern that we wanted a bone dry circuit and we're still having to dry it out, and are we going to be in the right place at the right time? And of course, in terms of what you can do to the car for a wet road, well, they've got to think on their feet here, having been in the dry yesterday.
Yeah, and there'll be so many settings that can be changed, and the driver will be speaking with their engineer, can we go a bit softer just to let the car roll its weight around a little bit better, so it is then possible to use the weight transfer. As we've seen Team Portugal, Alvaro Ramos in the 150 car, nice livery on that, the fluoro yellow, easy to spot. Lisa Clark now making her way out, missed the first 7 minutes, so yeah, I think the strategy there probably is just to let the track get a little bit better before she commits to the track and starts her qualifying run.
So we'll see how she fares once the Team USA car hits the circuit. Right, for Portugal then, Alvaro Ramos improving in the first sector, but he's only 9th of the 10 that we've had so far, and therefore there is a bit more time to find. He didn't really sparkle though in the second free practice session yesterday, so Alvaro Ramos perhaps wanting a little bit more mileage, but having raced in these cars all season, knows what the 296 Challenge car is all about, and he comes then now up towards turn 12. So for Portugal, Ramos should be an improver, but now at the very top of the times it is Venezuela, because Angelo Oliveira has done a 142.7. He's 0.3 quicker than Spain's Ivan Velasco Sanchez.
Yeah, the lap times are going to keep improving, I think, for the next 2 or 3 laps, but then I do think the wet tyre is going to start to go off because it's just going to get so hot. The surface of the tyre starts to kind of grain up, so there's less contact, and that just gets worse and worse, generates more heat, which creates more graining, which generates more heat. Team Germany here coming onto the back straight out of 6, very easy to do a track limit on the exit there. Everyone being very respectful, a little bit easier to be respectful of track limits in the wet because the curb's obviously that bit slippier, so as it dries out maybe we'll start to see some more track limit warnings. We were seeing black flags given for F4 drivers doing too many misdemeanors on the track limit, so the drivers will have that in the back of their mind that they don't want to use it too much. Venezuela really pushing on there. You can see the visor down, not letting the sun affect him. Purple sector 1, about to break the beam here for sector 2. You can just see the shadow there. It's not his best, but it's not by far, is it? 200ths behind, so there's still a chance this could improve his lap time and give a bigger gap to second place.
Bit of spray being kicked into his face though, so a little bit down in the middle sector, and he's going to encounter that other car at exactly the wrong part of the circuit, isn't he? Because he couldn't really dive up the inside, and just that little bit of hesitation is going to go against him. And then to add insult to injury, the car, I think it's Team Germany's Axel Sartingen, goes for the pit lane. Again, a lot of spray being generated, relatively speaking, on the pit straight, and Oliveira doesn't improve. He will go again. What about James Owen, who goes across the line for Team UK? He does improve up to 3rd there, just going down towards turn 1. The car being a little bit nervous maybe as he stands on the brakes.
Yeah, I mean, the conditions at the moment, it's surprisingly patchy. There isn't a logic you can apply. Parts are lap drier than others, that's normal. But even there, when we're watching at 14 from the drone, it looked bone dry all the way through the corner. And then on the exit, there was a huge amount of spray. So it must just be where we had the thunderstorm last night, rained so heavy. It must have created some rivers running across the track that are just drying at a completely different rate. So a real tricky call for the drivers here on what to do on the tyres. James Owen coming through, car looks nice and compliant there. Look at those Pirelli slicks. There's so much more contact area than those wet tyres. So Germany making the call with just under 20 minutes going. They are stone cold, so that's going to take him, I think, 6-7 minutes to get enough heat in there to really generate some heat. And look at those damp patches as we watch the car through turn 8, through turns 9, hopping over the curb, trying to use it, trying to straighten it up as much as you can, less steering, more speed is the easy equation when you're a racing driver. But I'm really excited to see Team Germany leave. I think their outlap might be quite exotic in steering angle that way round.
It's going to be a voyage of discovery, isn't it? As Axel Sartingen for Team Germany will be the pioneer, first one onto the wets. James Owen, though, from Wales, he's used to the rain, comes up towards turn 14, and is this going to be an improvement for him? Well, he's down to 4th again, because Team Switzerland's Christoph Hörni has gone 2nd, and Owen down in sectors 1 and 2, but he's staying out there. He's not yet deciding to bail. On that part of the circuit, you'd think, no, stay on the wets, but Axel Sartingen's first 3, 4, maybe even 5 laps are all going to be quite interesting. Into the top 10 has gone Lisa Clark, so it hasn't taken her long to get ahead now of Tel Al-Shaya from Team Lebanon, and there is James Owen up towards turn 2. So it is 0.2 of a second between the top 2, between Venezuela and Switzerland. And there is Lisa Clark, who raced in the Ferrari Challenge race that supported the Le Mans 24 Hours last year. So she has done quite a bit of travelling and racing to Europe, but normally competes in the North American Championship.
Yeah, it'd be a great honour for her to obviously represent the United States. They have a very strong domestic Ferrari Challenge series as well, so she'll be used to the competitive racing. New to Valencia, obviously, can pick up the track relatively quickly. It is a short lap, but 14 corners and very technical, long flowing into tightening corners at times. So one of those tracks that's quite infuriating as a driver. You make one mistake and suddenly it then knocks on to the next 3 corners due to the sequence of how they run. Turn 12 here, very easy to run wide like we've seen a few times. But yeah, I think we're going to have 4 or 5 cars on slicks in the next few minutes, so we'll start to get a good tell. The interesting bit of the spray coming out of here at 14, it is when the car is fully straight. So yes, it is wet, but you'll see the spray come in any second now. The car shouldn't be affected by that point because the steering wheel's straight. You're going probably about 130, 140 kilometers an hour, so the downforce, I think, will stop the slick from spinning up at that point. So yeah, you've just got to judge where it's wet and how much it will affect as we see Team Georgia heading back out on a new set of slicks.
And also in has come Team Switzerland, Christoph Hörni, 2nd in the time. So I think now, can we call this a session of 2 halves? You've got part 1, which is for the wets, and part 2 that's for the slicks. And we are almost at that halfway point of the session now with 17 more minutes on the clock. Big flash of the lights there, coming down towards turn 1 to say to the slower car, don't cut across and get in front of me. Now, Team Germany then was the first onto the slicks. This is Axel Sartingen, who is not going quickly enough, it doesn't look, to get the warmth into them. So it's still a bit tippy-toey.
Yeah, it's real tricky, but they are stone cold, so this will be the most extreme it's going to look at the moment. So we've gone on board with him. This will be a great shot. How much can he commit into turn 14? Not much at all. It is painfully slow at the moment, but when the tyres are this cold, grip levels are like ice. So I'm not expecting him to be fast, but you're right. We need to get a bit more speed to generate heat. Very chicken and egg, this situation. Until you go fast, you don't get the heat. But if you can't go fast, you're not going to get the heat. So the best thing you can be doing is adding some brake zones. So on the long pit straight, just brake hard a few times. The brakes generate so much heat themselves that radiates through and the surface temperature picks up. A great illustration of a wet shod car coming past us, just how much more grip. And that's Team Lebanon. And they were currently, where are they? Sorry, 9th. So not even the fastest wet car. Shows you the delta at the moment. But what I think Team Germany have done well is committed first. So it gives them the most time to get the most heat in. And I think in 15 minutes time, it will be the right tyre to be on.
It's just being patient, isn't it? Letting the track come to your tyres rather than making a mistake, because it is easy to try to push hard. As you say, you want the warmth in the rubber, so you start to push, but then you go off and then it's all wasted. So Sartingen tiptoes round, and other teams will be watching all of this, but they're still committing.
Yeah, I think it's because the wets have gone off as well. It's almost like they can't improve on the wet because they've taken the best out of them. They haven't got another set of wets to put on mid-session. So their only option is the slick, which at least when it's your only option, you know it's the right option, because you can't have any other drone. Looking at Team Germany, still very tentative. You can see that dry line now, though, at least. So that will start to give the drivers, but still patchy in places. So in the corners, they'll just be feeling the grip. The car talking to these drivers through the steering wheel, through the base of the seat. The driver just feeling how much grip have they got underneath them. The teams also may start to be talking to them, saying this car has just done X in sector 1, so we can push on a little bit more. traction control we said about turn it up, give you confidence that you can floor it, and let the car have the problem as we go back on board. Just trying to look at the traction control settings on the dash. Can't quite see it because of the sunlight. We're in quite a high gear as well, so trying to keep out the torque of this turbo engine, twin turbos that spool up very quickly. Suddenly you go from feeling like you've got 400 horsepower to 700 when those turbos kick in down to third. So at the moment I feel like we're just a gear higher everywhere, trying to mitigate the wheel spin that might come from the torque, as we see more slick tyres this time being fitted to James Owen in Team United Kingdom.
So in one sector alone, Axel Sartingen in sector 1, 13 seconds slower than the absolute best in sector 1. Not the lap, one sector. So we are still a long way from the slicks kicking in, but we will get there as the Engel run car of James Owen is set to make its way back out on track. We've had a lap time taken off Spain. Ivan Velasco has lost a lap time, but with the slicks on, James Owen will be ready to go. Paolo Scudieri for Team Italy, good to go as well, and still on wets.
Yeah, so the only one we've seen come in and then leave again on wets. Be interesting to see what they did. Was it a setup change? Did they just bleed the pressures? Is that the team saying to him, listen, this guy's 13 seconds off in one sector alone. We don't think it's going to happen. And the team have made the call and potentially overruled the driver on what they're saying. It does look like it's getting slightly quicker each lap though, but it's a huge delta to find in what we're going to have, probably only going to get another 6 or 7 flying laps. It's really going to be hard now to get the heat up, and I think anyone leaving on slicks now, I think James Owen has got a big ask ahead of him to get to this stage 3 laps later than Team Germany.
So Axel Sartingen, when he went through last time, did a 2 minute 17 on the slicks, and we'll see what he can do on the next lap in order to monitor whether or not the times are improving. So the laps that he's doing are, if you like, proper ones. They're flying laps as best he can without just stepping over that line and putting the car in the gravel. So Axel Sartingen on this lap is still round about 12 seconds down in sector 1. So he's picking up the pace a little bit. The other one on slicks that made the change early is Data Kayala from Georgia. And this will be his first lap on the slick, first flying lap. And it's 2:13, so that's better. So let's keep an eye on these two nations and see how they're doing on the slicks. 2:13 now is the better slick lap, but it's a 1:42 from a wet.
Yeah, so 4 seconds quicker than Team Germany's first lap, and the energy looked higher, didn't it? You could see the car darting around a little more, so I think they're just a little bit more confident. Team Germany now 2 minute 10, so 7 seconds quicker on their last lap. So it is getting there, but there's still a long way to go as we see Venezuela also on slicks. Can they get the power down? Can they get that 700 horsepower all the way through the rear tyres? Still looking tentative. The clock is going to evaporate for these drivers. Yeah. When you need it to go slow as a driver, it goes fast. And when you need it to go fast, it goes slow. It's amazing how being a racing driver, you can bend physics and change how time reacts. Switzerland, are they taking the slicks off and putting the wets back on? It looks like it. I think that's the first team we've seen do that, actually reverse their decision. Yeah. Still got time to get out there. So if the driver's saying, I can't do it, then listen to the driver and put the wets back on.
Yeah, because 11 minutes, it's just not drying out quickly enough. And there's proof. Lisa Clark has had a spin through turn 12. So now to try to turn around the car, the danger is she gets onto the wet grass, and then there's temperature loss that way as you put more water on the tyre. She's on the escape road and trying to rejoin without getting in anybody's way. So she's off the circuit. Just out of our window, I can see her rejoining. And there you can see that Lisa Clark now needs to find a safe moment to rejoin. She doesn't want to get in anybody's way, but it just snapped away.
Yeah, really went quickly again. That's just what happens when you're on slick tyres, cold slick tyres on a damp track, and that much power. Not really an obvious mistake. It was just came round super fast, as you can see, rejoining, trying to give the racing line at least to the drivers coming past. James Owen still in the pits on the slick tyres. We saw that car, so he's obviously done an out-in lap. He's come straight back in and said, no, give me those wets. So we're seeing now a few cars doing that, track improving. at the moment, I can't say what the right decision is. It looked like Venezuela are generating enough temperature to maybe get somewhere near Georgia the same, but can Germany do the same? A 2:06 now for Georgia, so I think that's the fastest slick time we've seen thus far, but still 26 seconds off.
2 minutes 5 we've just had also from Spain. So Velasco's done a 2 minutes 5, and Sartingen for Germany's done a 2 minutes 7. So they're all starting to get there, as in the times are coming down. But are they going to come down quickly enough? 10 minutes remain. It's going to be touch and go. I mean, they're going in the right direction, but they've got to be better than a wet time, not just equaling it.
Yeah, it's still quite chilly here. It's only 13 degrees track temperature, 14.5 ambient. So it's obviously not much wind either, 4 meters a second of wind. So as we see those conditions coming up with the humidity pretty high as well. So I think the track is just not dried as quickly as we thought, and it's caught a few drivers and teams out potentially. But I generally think it's a flip of the coin of what is the right strategy at the moment. And we've got everyone covered, haven't we? We've had some cars stay out on wets, some come in for slicks, back to wets, and some staying on slick. So someone's going to get it right at least.
It's deceptive in as much as we were saying that it's become much brighter and sunnier, and it has, and maybe that tricked the teams into thinking it was going to be warmer than it was. And because it's a very clear blue sky, maybe they thought, right, this is going to dry out so quickly, and it just has not done. The temperature hasn't really risen hugely. So it is still a greasy road. 8 minutes remain, and last time through Spain got to a 2-minute 1. But that's still giving you around about 20 seconds to find in 8 minutes, and I'm not convinced it's going to dry out enough.
It depends, doesn't it? One lap, they went 7 seconds quicker than the lap before. So if they keep doing that at that rate, it just about does turn the tide. But it'll be a diminishing return after a while. It won't stay at 7 seconds a lap. That is the problem. As we look at Team Sweden here, Kinch really pushing on. Great overtaking move, which isn't something you normally say in qualifying out of turn 8, splitting 2 cars there. Again, the sun really in the driver's eyes. Saw a little bit of bodywork flapping underneath the car of that Swedish car. I just wonder, maybe one of the exit curbs has just caught the flooring and it's just hanging down, but it doesn't look like it will be too significant and it won't hurt them too much. 5th place for Team Sweden now.
Okay, so that's an improvement for Christian Kinch, and Switzerland went back onto wets, didn't it? So Christoph Hörny here now finds himself on wet tyres on a road that is drying a bit, but he thinks the wets have just got the edge over the slicks and might be able to help him find 0.234 of a second, which would give him provisional pole position. There's a second qualifying session for the Ferrari Challenge style cars for the one-make GT discipline later on in the day. Christoph Hörny goes through, stays second. That lap was a 1:43.5. His best was a 42.9, so not quite as good as he went earlier on. This is the car that's fastest then into the pit lane, and wets. Back onto wets.
Yeah, very late call there. An interesting thing is, I can't remember the last time I saw a purple sector. They were done very early on the session. So people are improving their lap time, but we're not seeing ultimate fastest sectors. And I think that's because the wets have gone off at the point the track was at its best. So if you were to redo this session as a driver and you had the confidence, I actually think you would wait for the first 10-15 minutes to go and then go out on wets, and you'd get the best of the tyre on the best of the track. But no one did that, understandably, because that is a big decision to make, to effectively lose half his session. As you can see, that bit of bodywork just flapping away just before the rear right tyre. I think on the Ferrari there, it's just where the sill meets the main floor, and something's just popped off as a big slide, and I think that is why it's hanging down. The exit curb has just ripped it off effectively.
Now, James Owen for Team UK, personal best, absolute best. Kinch stays 5th for Sweden, but the Welsh wizard is working his magic out there for Team UK. James Owen, there he is, with only really one corner to go, and this looks very good indeed. Back onto the wets. You were saying you'd not seen a purple sector for a while. Well, let James Owen deliver it for you. 3rd on the run to the flag, the run to the line. Is he going to get himself to the top? He is. James Owen goes fastest then for Team United Kingdom. Excellent effort that, and he's over 0.3 of a second ahead of Team Venezuela. Great job by Team UK's James Owen.
Yeah, and they made the right decision. They coming back in for Wet's busy part of the track. Again, we're going to get a good illustration of Wet's versus Slicks. Team Germany in front on the slick tyres. Easily past. The Slicks still struggling as we go to a replay of Sweden. That big snap of oversteer out of 14. We saw it from the rear. Looked even more dramatic from the front. Did really well to hang onto that, onto the slippery curb while you're oversteering. Already is never a particularly fun experience in hindsight.
So with a touch of the curb on the way into the corner, Christian Kinch has a wild old ride, but is fifth in the times, and he has just lost that last lap anyway for going wide at turn 14 because it was a track limit offence. Just to prove how competitive all of this is, you've got 7th and 8th, Lebanon and Germany, split by 1,000th of a second. Axel Sartingen for Germany and Talal Shaya for Lebanon. And Sartingen has got his times down a little bit on the slicks, but struggling. And with 4 minutes to go, James Owen has just proved, really, by going back onto the wet tyre, that slicks wasn't the answer.
Yeah, and it almost looks like James Owen had one lap on that wet tyre before it dropped off, because his next lap is quite a long way off at the moment. So maybe he's just going to do a cooler, and that's going to be the theme for the remainder of this session, is one push lap, put a load of energy into it, but then the car and the tyre overheats. So you have to just back it off for a lap, let it cool down, then go again. So I think that's going to be the only strategy that you can play at the moment, as we see Team Italy coming out of there, 6/10 down in Sector 1, still flat through the kink at 7, hard on the brakes as we cut out the last corner, busy part of the track. Yet again, some of these drivers were starting to get a bit frustrated getting their laps held up with other cars and traffic. In this last part of qualifying is very frustrating. Team Germany there, leaving the pits, I assuming they've gone back to wets for one final shot of it.
And for Italy, Paolo Scudieri has just gone up to 7th. Christian Kinch for Team Sweden has gone up to 5th. There is the Italian car. So on his last lap, Scudieri improved. This is a slower lap, unfortunately, but he has got himself slightly further up the order in this first of the 2 qualifying sessions for the GT single make category. And to the line will come Scudieri, but no improvement in the offing this time around.
Yeah, and only time for 2 more flying laps, so it's really, you've got 2 more shots at each corner to see if you can improve it as we go back to Kinch, who's probably been our wildest driver, hasn't he, so far this session, really hurtling that car around. Going to get the front end. Is it a little less wild than the last time we saw the car leaving the last corner? Much better, very compliant on track limits. There's a good chance here he's going to improve on his 5th place at the moment. Breaks the beam. What can he do? 4th place, 1 higher. Good job.
Yeah, he's chipped away, hasn't he, Christian Kinch, for Team Sweden. He's made the right call on the tyres and he stayed out and been able to improve late in the session. This is the car second, Venezuelan's entry, and it's now at turn 14 with the middle sector good and the first sector not quite so good in the end for Angelo Oliviero, and he comes up towards the timing line, breaks the beam and does not improve, so still 3/10 away from James Owen.
Yeah, team looking on not particularly happy. A shake of the head there. Everyone now starting a lap. This will be their last lap. We've got less than a lap time remaining. So what have people got? I said we hadn't seen a purple sector in ages. James Owen proved me wrong quite nicely. I'm happy with that. I'm always wrong. But we haven't seen another one since. So I'm saying that to try and invigorate people to do it on this last lap. That's my motive there.
Right, you're thinking. Yeah, rather more nervous teams. That's looking into the pit wall area for Team Venezuela. For Team Sweden, in the meantime, Christian Kinch up to 4th on the last lap, and an absolute best has just come from Venezuela. So your urges have been responded to here. Olivero has now gone absolute best first sector. And as you look down at Christian Kinch for Sweden going a little bit wide, coming out of 12, it is the Venezuelan car now with less than a lap time left in the session that could well be the star.
Yeah, we saw the team unhappy. Maybe the energy funneled into the car, and Team Venezuela then have really picked up. Kinch coming out the last corner. Doesn't look like this is going to be enough to Kinch in pole position at the moment. He's going to just get this one more lap, isn't he? 30 seconds. What can he do? Stays 4th, 143.3. It's going to be hard, I think, that he's been pushing for so hard. I think he's had the best of the wets. Here is Team Venezuela. Lost a little bit of time in Sector 2, not too much. Going to get a little affected as well by James Owen in front of Team United Kingdom. but can he do it? This is going to be just squeezing one more lap out of it. These are the last cars that are going to get the last lap. Team United Kingdom, Team Venezuela stays second, 5/10 off pole position still.
Yeah, so that lap for Venezuela started well and then ebbed away, and one more lap. But if Oliveira is stuck behind James Owen, he's not going to be able to improve. James isn't going to make life easy. He's not going to be obstructive, but he's just not going to be rolling over and letting him go by. Christian Kinch, in the meantime, has improved in Sector 1 for Team Sweden. James Owen goes a little bit deep there, down towards Turn 4, and he is pushing. But now for Georgia, David Kayala has done a absolute best first sector. James Owen is about half a second down on that. And for Venezuela, I think Angelo Oliveira is unable to get through, and he's being slightly compromised. James Owen goes offline. But I just wonder what Georgia can do before the end of the session. And I didn't expect it to come alive quite like this with people on the wets. Now, we knew that Kayala went onto slicks. Did he go back onto wets, or is this finally the slick tyre turning on?
Hard to call. I'm just trying to look at the tyre wall. It's more yellow, the slick tyre. To me, that looks like a wet as my first guess. I'd say it's almost definitely a wet, actually.
Yeah.
So he must have gone back. This is going to be really close to pole position here as he's going to break the beam. 6th at the moment. Purple Sector 1. What can he do? He does go pole position by 400 a second. Mega lap from Georgia there, and takes the checker flag.
43 thousandths then is the margin, and Q1 topped by Georgia from the UK and then Venezuela. But a great effort done by David Kayala to go to the very top. And for Sweden, Christian Kinch getting 5th in the end. James Owen will take the flag, but will be perhaps a little bit miffed that it's not the fastest time that he claims. He will be second at the very end. Goes through. That lap was a 45 anyway, so he rounds out the session, but didn't go any faster. So Team UK second, and Team Germany, Axel Sartingen, the first one to go to the slicks, and then ultimately going back to the wets. In the end, only 9th fastest.
Great shot of Team Georgia. You could see him coming out of turn 1, punching the air with delight. The team had obviously already told him your pole position within, 10 seconds of doing it. So, yeah, he will be purely overjoyed. Really good for Georgia to get a pole position as well in a super competitive championship race like this single-make GT race will be.
And Team Italy's Paolo Scudieri 7th at the end of the session. So he's there or thereabouts. But it's going to be competitive, that is for sure. And that was kind of what James Owen was suggesting pre-event, that there are some very good people within this entry. And for Georgia, then, David Kayala, who has been a former Speed Series competitor in their slalom championship, went circuit racing way back in 2007. He's been a Legends champion, Euro Nations Cup in the Georgian Legends and the European Legends Series, went touring car racing for a time as well, and has been racing in TCR Europe this season also. At the end of Q1 then, for the GT single make discipline, Georgia tops the times from the United Kingdom, the margin 43 thousandths of a second. Venezuela 3rd ahead of Switzerland, Sweden 5th ahead of Spain, with Italy 7th, Lebanon 8th, Team Germany 9th from Team Portugal, and the United States of America in 11th. David Kayala then is the fastest from James Owen, with Angelo Oliveira taking the 3rd quickest time, then Christoph Herney from Christian Kinch, and Ivan Velasco Sanchez for the home nation for Team Spain, completing the top 6. There is a second qualifying session for them to come a little bit later on, and we'll see whether or not Georgia are going to be able to maintain that top slot. Well, it'll, all being well, be a bone-dry circuit, so it takes some of the jeopardy away in that second session. But from a driver's point of view, from an engineer's point of view, Joe, that session was, yes, a challenge, but also a nightmare, because you could never really guarantee what the track surface was going to be like long-term.
And it feels like with a 30-minute session, it would have been easy because there's so much time to make the right decision. Almost felt the opposite way. We had too much time to make a wrong call there. I think nearly every car went to slicks as well at some point there. I think Germany went first and stayed on it the longest. With 3 minutes remaining, they went back to wets. So I think they were on the slicks for 12 minutes of that session, which ultimately proved to be the wrong tyre. But I can see why the teams did it. I don't think anyone's made a bad decision there. They were trying to use logic as we see the cars park up. So many races here. The garage is full of GT3 cars in F4, so the single-make GT Ferrari Challenge cars actually going in awnings in the paddock. You can see how tight it is there. I think we're expecting huge crowds today. We had a lot of spectators yesterday for a Friday, so I think over the weekend Valencia is always a great track to come to, so close to the city, a great city as well. So we normally see lots of fans, but also fans that love their motorsport, more importantly.
Yeah, one of the other disciplines, of course, at the FIA Motorsport Games, drifting. That has its own track actually within the paddock. So if you think to the first edition at Vallelunga, we had the drifting on the circuit at the end of each day. Well, here it's a separate track built, and the fans have been able to go and watch that, then go trackside. And we've also got Electric Street, which is for karting slalom and auto slalom. That got underway on Thursday. In the middle of the Valencia city itself, in the museum, there is the esports competitions, plural, because this year we have a Formula 4 and a GT discipline. GT we had in the past, but F4 has joined this year. So very popular esports competitors. And the track drying, but curbs and track edges still wet is the official verdict from race control. So Georgia taking the fastest time in the first qualifying session for GT single make, and Data Kayaya will be a very happy man. Whether he can hang on to being the fastest, we will wait and see, because when the cars are back on track this afternoon, it should be an all-dry circuit, and that's going to give perhaps a lifeline to one or two people that struggled with those conditions. So after great success in Legends, there might be a gold medal coming this weekend for the Georgian driver, for Data Kayala, then, who is the fastest at the end of Q1 in GT single make. So the sun shining here at Valencia, the road drying, if a little slower than expected. Qualifying one for single make GT began on a wet but drying road. Everybody went out on wet tyres first of all to get in some banker laps, to have a look at the track surface. One or two ventured out a little bit later, such as Lisa Clark representing Team USA. But it wasn't long before good lap times were being offered up, and with the amount of water on the road being patchy, one or two nations thought it was time early to go for slick tyres, and Germany would be the first to make that call, but the road was still very treacherous indeed, and Lisa Clark discovered just how treacherous when she was on slicks, and the car snapped away at turn 12. Quick early on, though, had been the Spanish entry for Ivan Velasco Sanchez, and the Spanish driver hung on to the top time as others, like Christian Kinch, got tremendously brave through the traffic. But offline, it was still wet and it was still slippery, and going on to slick tyres was not the answer. There was plenty of opposite lot being applied by Christian Kinch, as James Owen was able to put himself up towards the top of the times. Christoph Herney was going nicely early on. He put himself up to second, but the Team Switzerland entry would start to fall away. And for Venezuela, Angelo Carlo Fontana Olivero was the fastest for much of the session, but he also got dumped down the order late on. And he was dumped by this man, James Owen, who was the fastest going into the last couple of minutes of the session, but he couldn't quite hang on to the time, because for Georgia, it was ultimately David Kayaya who was able to come through and score the top time. Only 43 thousandths of a second between them, but it's been ultra competitive in Q1 for single make GT.